So the impact of the outbreak of the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19 globally, has been nothing short of devastating. But could the response to it turn out to be a boon for the efforts to curb another scourge, wildlife poaching and extinction of some endangered species? Conservationists have praised China's nationwide ban on the sale of wildlife in markets and restaurants. The ban was implemented immediately, but it's not yet clear if it's permanent. Beijing was under pressure to implement the ban after the outbreak of COVID-19. Conservationists have previously condemned China's use of wild animals for food and traditional medicines. For more on this, I'm joined via Skype by Daily Maverick journalist Tiara Walters. Tiara, thank you for joining me. So, Tiara, in your article there that you wrote about this phenomenon where China has now moved to ban the sale and transportation and trade in wild animals, you liken it to some kind of a revolution. Why do you believe it's revolutionary?
Well, this is the strongest announcement yet on laws in China clamping down on an incredibly destructive trade. We have seen announcements in the past like the ivory ban, but this is a much more comprehensive ban of the sale and consumption of wildlife across China. So this is the first time in modern history that this has happened so comprehensively.
And put it in context then for us. Why did China have to resort to these measures? It all goes back to retracing the origins of the COVID-19 outbreak among humans, right?
Yes. So COVID-19 has been traced to a wildlife market in China. Very crowded conditions, very unsanitary. And so these are state authorities. They traced it back to the wildlife market. So we have pretty good evidence that this is one of the places that it started and spread. So the thing to understand here is that wildlife across the world is in trouble, and China is a huge, huge driver of that phenomenon. So it's not only a conservation issue, it is a security issue, it's a public health issue, it's a political issue, it's a question of China's international standing in the world. And let's face it, we are potentially looking at a global shutdown. So China's had very little choice but to understand that it is time to come down hard on this incredibly destructive trade. Might I add, what I found really interesting researching this article is that this is not the majority of Chinese who support this trade. That is a misconception. It is a minority of people, but a minority of people in China can still be tens of millions of people.
Tiara, to what extent can we read a change in public values, public morality versus this is pragmatism that says if you have an outbreak of a virus and people are dying and some of the science points to the possibility, albeit, at this point further research and further studies are being done, but nonetheless points to the possibility of a species jump that is linked to your consumption and trade in wild animals. Is this pragmatism, or is China really experiencing a change in values within the context of this, but also the ban on ivory trade and shark fin in the recent years?
China is a very pragmatic country. There are caveats, of course. They have a highly questionable human rights record, but it's also the Standing Committee of China is a very practical thinking body. They've done immense work in terms of lifting people out of poverty. And so they're very much aware of the fact that the outbreak might derail their poverty alleviation project. So make no mistake, it's definitely pragmatic. It is a question of their international standing. However, if one looks at the polls, there is a real change, particularly among the more educated classes. I think a poll of 100,000 people showed that something like 97% of people were opposed to the trade. And I had a very interesting conversation with Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Ling Songtian, who was very, very eager to impress upon me that life in China has changed. We are looking at an advanced country in terms of technology, in terms of education, and people there understand the ramifications as much as we do. And don't forget, they are caught in the epicenter of this outbreak. They are locked down in their homes. So I would say it's safe to say that there is a sea change sweeping across China.
All right, Tiara, thank you so much for sharing your insights here with us here on Upfront. That's Tiara Walters. She's penned an incisive and insightful piece on the Daily Maverick. You should look out for it. It's called A Sea Change in China's Attitude Towards Wildlife Exploitation May Just Save the Planet. It's part of the spin-offs from the situation with the COVID-19 virus coming out of China, a total ban on the trade and consumption of wildlife in that country.